Hey, it's Eric from VFX Tools, and I'm going to show you a tutorial for aePipeline. I have my footage imported. I have my references imported. This is going to be the very basics of how it works, and then we can dig into all of the little details, and there's many of those. So I'm going to select all of my footage. I'm going to click AutoComp, and it's going to build out these comps ready for like a VFX workflow. I've got my Preslate. So inside of there is my reference. It's been matched up against my footage. I have my LUT color layer already set up and my footage. Every one of these has that same setup where I work inside of the Preslate, I render my comp, and the comp has a generated, Slate, and then the rest of the footage. And lastly, I have my comp LUT, which is like the render preview. And in that, you get to render with your color. And then when you're done with the shot and it's approved, you can render your comp, which does not actually have the color baked in, but you still have your slate. Perfect for a visual effects artist. So here we go. That was the simple part. Now let's say I want to render these. I select this stuff. I click QueueUp for all the ones that I want. No, we want to keep with tutorial. And then you will see that the previews, the comp LUTs, are rendering with my preview settings, and the finals are rendered with my final settings inside of a finals folder, which is cool. Okay. So now let's see how to actually set something up. Here we go. So let's make a new client. And if you don't have a template set up, you can either click that template button or it will make one. Yeah, it'll make one for you, I think, if there's not one in there. So client name, we'll call this tutorial 2. And now I can kind of get into the nitty gritty of stuff. So in step 1, we're choosing whether we want to use preview comps at all. I think if you were in a motion graphics workflow and you weren't using LUTs and CDLs and all that, maybe you wouldn't want to use this. And whether or not you want to use a slate frame. Most jobs that we work on at CleanPlate Effects, we use the slate frame. You don't need to. So now we click next. Now you choose your output folder. Each client has its own output folder. And this is handy because now you don't have to remember where was I supposed to render this to, and you're not, trying to find these files all over the place. So, output folder, I'm going to click browse, and I have one set up on my desktop here. So that's where that's going to go. This job does not have handles, but if your references, if your footage has handles that's different than the references, you would put that here. So 8 frames on the head, 8 frames on the tail is standard. You can set that here. I'm going to set 0. Start frame, typically in visual effects, is 1,000. If some jobs, they want us to put our company name inside of the file name, so we'll put that here. And if you're working with CDLs, you would check this, so .cc files or .ccc files, and then put the folder. This tutorial thing doesn't have that. You can see I've got certain folders in my template. If you wanted to have different folders, you can add them here. What's something we would use? We already have mats and assets. Let's call it test, and because I'm out of ideas, and it would show up here, and you can do as many or as little as you want, so you always kind of have that same folder set up. Now, these are our AutoComp settings. So you saw I was able to select the footage and click AutoComp, and it built out this stuff automatically. Well, it's using these settings to do that. I generally, for visual effects, are using 1080p previews for the assistant editor team. You can do the same as source. You can do a custom template, and I'll show you that in a sec. And same for the comp and the Preslate. So I'm going to set these both to source. Then you can set different scales. The scale is of your footage. So sometimes we get these like 6K plates that need to go into a UHD comp. In that case, you would make the template UHD and you would scale down the footage to whatever it needs to be to fit. Because sometimes they're using center crop and all sorts of stuff. But that gives you the flexibility here. I'm going to do a very basic one. Now, the render settings for QueueUp. You saw with QueueUp, I'm able to select my files, click QueueUp, and it sends them to the right place with the right formats, which is nice as you switch clients back and forth. You don't need to remember this either. Who wants to remember things? I don't. So DNX HR we can use here, and then set this to movie and do ProRes, or you could set it to image sequence and do EXRs or whatever. And then the last thing here is matte output. That is if you're using matteMaker. We can get into that as well. And I would use this setting, and I'm gonna, in the documentation, I'll provide what this setting is. You'll have to custom make this if you want to use matteMaker. So I'll click create, and that will have created that client. So I'm gonna switch back to my tutorial client here, and that's all set up. If you ever needed to change those settings, you go to setup here, and here they all are. Oh, the other thing you can choose is this logo path, and the logo path will tell what logo to put inside of your template here. I'm sorry, here. So I'm using my company logo here. It'll end up here. So here are the templates. When you click that template button, it'll make all of these folders, and it'll make these. And so here's your Preslate, and that has your reference, which will get swapped in, your LUT CDL layer, and your footage, which will get swapped in. When you set up a job, you're going to want to come in here and set either your OCIO settings. If you have CDLs, this effect will get automatically populated based on the folder that you give it. It'll match the names of the footage up to the names of the CDL and magically pop them in there. And then here's where you would put your .cube file, your LUT. So you want to have that turned on here. And then you would take those same settings and bring them into the comp LUT, where you would, they're set up here too. So these effectively do nothing for us right now because I'm not using them. This one is going from RE log 3 or log C to Rec 709. And so now when we, oh, and if you want to turn off burn-in, you know, this frame number, date, and name of the comp, you can turn that off on your template, and it'll be off for the rest of them. I don't know why you'd want to. We're generally using burn-in for our VFX shots. So now we click AutoComp, and here we go. That's nice. And now here's another feature. So I go to the comp and I click versionUp. It asks what notes we're addressing, and hopefully this works the way I'm expecting. So I'm going to say client wanted blah, blah. Great. And I click OK. When I click OK, if I go to the actual comp, you'll see that in the notes, it automatically updates that, which is very cool. Now, the problem that you may run into sometimes is, okay, we did version 2, but where did all those settings for version 1 go? If you want, you can use this new feature for versionUp. So version 2, erase the thing from the background. That's what they want us to do in version 2. And we click backup, and it's going to make this folder. And inside of that, it's got our shot name with the time and date stamp. And you'll see, oh, here's version 2, and it's a backup of version 2. And so it duplicates an entire tree. If we had pre-comps in here and expressions and stuff, it would duplicate that all out and swap it in, and you'd have a backup of that previous version, which is pretty cool, if I do say so myself. And then matteMaker, these shots, let's do this. We're gonna do a fake visual effect shot here. So I'm gonna roto brush this for a couple frames. That's my buddy James. This is for my short film Mailman that I made. Isn't that fun? Not safe for work, but you can check it out on my YouTube. Let's not spend too much time with this fake rotoscoping, right? we'll propagate that to the beginning. Here, let's freeze it. I'll pause while we freeze, so we just have this thing done. Where's the freeze button? Freeze. Pause. Okay, so matteMaker, your client is requesting mats, and you don't want to duplicate your comps, and it's all complicated and stuff. So we've got our foreground and our background, and our background's going to be a checkerboard on this shot, and there. So imagine like a monitor comp or whatever, and you need to provide mats, right? So here we go. We're going to go to, if I remember right, the Preslate. Do I remember right? And we're going to click matteMaker. Yes. And it created, why does it say BA? Well, I'll fix that so it doesn't say BA 02 anymore. But I created the matte layer for it. And that's funny. You always find little errors when you're making these tutorials, right? It also says comp 2. Okay, so I added that backup feature and it screwed up matteMaker. All right, so now we go into matteMaker, and what's it done? It's moved the footage over one frame. It's elongated the thing by one frame. So now it's compensated for our slate. So when the assistant editor goes to match these up, the final will match with the matte. And now all we have to do is turn off our background, and now it'll be able to render a matte for that shot. So we have a separate comp, and we don't need to like render this and then turn stuff off and then re-render it. That turns into a mess. So we have our matte. Now let's go to render these. So I'm going to click QueueUp, and this is really useful because let's say I'm here. I'll actually show you if I save this file as the same as the client name. So if I do tutorial Eric 01, right? Now my file's the same as that client name, and I click QueueUp, I'm not going to get that warning. That's how that works. But if I have it on the wrong one, like demo, and I click QueueUp, it's going to warn me. It's going to say, wait a minute, did you mean to do tutorial instead? Because your file is named tutorial. And so when I work with aePipeline, I work with this file naming system and name my clients the same as the file name. So I go, actually, yeah, I do want to switch to tutorial. So I did that. Now let's look at what got queued up. We've got this LUT setting is rendering with this. And here's something cool that it does. It renames. Hold on. Messed up a setting. I'm guessing that this is set to image sequence. When it's a ProRes, it needs to be set to movie. Save. Okay. So do that again. QueueUp. Sorry for the delay. This renders to our output folder that we set in setup. So if we go into setup, it renders here. It automatically puts it there. As we switch clients, it'll do that. The comp will render. Well, I'll fix that. It's rendering to a subfolder for some reason. Okay, that's another thing that we found in the tutorial that's a mistake. But it renders to final/movie name. And then this, the matte, will go in the finals folder as well. And it renders with this setting. And this setting is, and you can choose whatever file format you want. I prefer sending my mats. It's alpha only in the channel. And it's ProRes 422. And that turns into like one of those black and white files that they'll use in the DI. That is most of aePipeline. There's one more thing that I forgot to cover. Inside of setup, we can go, we have main, AutoComp, QueueUp, and conditions. Conditions are rules that there's always these weird outliers in visual effects and in motion graphics. So let's say if the shot name says this, let's say we have like shots that have night in the name, and the night shots use a different LUT. But I have my LUT set up in this template, what am I going to do? So when the shot name contains night, I can go here and choose different settings. So I could use a different comp LUT template. And right now we only have one. So let's do this. We'll duplicate that. We'll call it template night. And then you would go in here and you would choose whatever your different LUT is, right? Let's pretend we did that. And now you'd go into your setup. And we'd say, when the shot name contains night, we're going to use a different comp LUT, and it's going to be this one. Great. So there's a lot of different options in here, whether it contains or doesn't contain, starts with, ends with. Let's see, matches any of. Isn't that the same as contains? You can do it based on the footage width or the aspect ratio because, it's a different, maybe it's a different type of pull, and that different type of pull doesn't have a different name, but it's like a bigger resolution. So you can differentiate based on that. And I could add different ones if I hear feedback from people. All right, so that's how you use aePipeline. And once you get these things, once you get a setup, then it's really easy to switch between clients and build out your shots. So you just bring in your footage, bring in your reference if you're using it, set up your LUTs, boom, all set up. And that's pretty fun. You can also click this button and use it in super tiny mode. So if you're doing this as a script UI panel, this can sit and just be in super tiny mode and not take up a lot of space. That's aePipeline. There's probably questions. I'm going to go fix those bugs. And by the time you see this video, they won't be there. Bye.